Hello and welcome to another Office Hours. Capsule. That's right, Capsule. This is a small segment of my Office Hours live stream where I talk about news, lore, and more on Star Citizen, usually on Thursdays. Today we're recording this on a Friday because of circumstances, but welcome to the Office Hours live stream. Welcome to the Office Hours Capsule. I don't know. This is going to be a bit of a kind of an off the top of my head topic, a discussion, because I think CIG may have messed up pretty badly, in fact, with the NERSA, the RSI Medevac, their approach to the changes to medical and other things. I do want to emphasize before you immediately jump to the to the comments, you white knights in shining armor on your white horses riding in to save corporate CIG. I am not here to say that CIG is the worst company ever or to throw up like a hissy fit, but I do want to discuss how I think CIG is poorly handling the situation, and hopefully give them enough feedback that they can use and maybe internally review some of their way they're doing things, because it's going to be important to deal with stuff like this in the future with Squadron 42 coming out, where it's going to be a lot more eyes who are a lot more... They're looking for blood a lot more than your own fan base that's been loyal for all this time. So let's start off with the ad. I'm going to mute it because I don't know if it's copywritten. I don't know if CIG licensed a song for it. So I'm going to pull it up and we're going to look through it, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the changes. I have the subtitles up there as well. You're probably thinking I'm a goner. Interesting live, die, repeat thing. You've died 1,000 times. Because the regen has always been the strategy. Really good voice arc, actually, when you just listen to this. Spaghetti Western hip-hop beat. Yeah, it's very live, die, repeat, Edge of Tomorrow coded. I like the action. It's neat. Like, from a cinematic point of view, it's a nice-looking trailer. The way it tells stories and everything like that. When we're getting kicked, CIG. And then die to fight another day. RSI Ursa Medevac. So, let's break that down. Notice that the emphasis of that video was on the regen, the respawn mechanic. The change to Tier 3 beds in 3.23.1 was that now Tier 3 beds can do regen, do respawn. And respawn is now selected by distance. So if you have a Tier 3 bed, I think it's like 20 kilometers. Tier 2 is a little bit longer, and Tier 1 is even further. So the weaker the bed, Tier 3, the closer you have to be to get regen. Now, that has caused some controversy because a lot of people are concerned that this is removing medical gameplay. There's no reason for you to rely on another person when you get hurt. You simply you get a Tier 2 or Tier 1 injury. If you survive a conflict, you limp back to your medical vehicle, your NERSA, your Pisces, and you do the old Backspace Express, wake up in your ship, go loot your body, put your stuff back on, and you're good to go. You don't need to go to a doctor. You don't need to find somebody to heal your Tier 1 wounds. It's all, it doesn't matter. It's all about the just regenning, using regen as a mechanic to get back into the fight. And I think people's concerns are valid because this feels like Battlefield or Call of Duty. And we weren't really sold on Battlefield or Call of Duty when it came to Star Citizen. We were told that death was supposed to mean things. And for those of you who are newer, you may have heard the term death of a spaceman thrown around. And Death of a Spaceman was a light permadeath system, which was based on the idea of a hard health bar where as you die, as you get killed, and your character gets killed, you have a kind of a separate health bar that's unseen, that's sort of slowly trickling down. So you're not really dead, you're kind of like seriously injured, then brought back to life. And then eventually that hard health bar would disappear, and then you would have to create a brand new character, and you would inherit all of your stuff from the old character, but you'd have like fees that you have to pay, and of course, reputation would be hit. The idea of trying to give some meaning to the existence of the character, so you would try to not get yourself killed as much, but also to make it harder to die in general. That evolved into what we know today as the regen system, which is not fully implemented, but it is implemented to the point where you have to have an imprint that you put onto a Ibrahim sphere. Depending on where you are, you go to a terminal, you imprint your Ibrahim sphere into a clinic or a ship or somewhere, and then when you die, you just respawn back at that location. It's kind of like a save point. Eventually, the goal of that system is to have what's known as the Imprint Viability Score, or IVS. The IVS is that hard health bar where every time you die, depending on how severe the death is, the quality of the place you're in, that sort of thing, it will go down more or less depending on how you died. Calculations that they have yet to come up with. With same result, eventually you'll be unable to regen because what they call trauma echoes builds up in your body, and which is basically like PTSD, and eventually you have to create a new character. And in the process, your limbs might stop working because your brain just rejects the idea that your limb even exists there. And so you have to get cybernetics, or you say your arms or your legs or your eyes or whatever. And that was part of the whole mechanic. You would show the signs of how many times you've regened based off of how many cybernetics you've had to acquire, and so on and so forth. This is all kind of connected to the original pitch. And this is the kind of the consistent idea of what was going to happen over the course of the last decade of Stress's development. CIG has very rarely wavered. And while they haven't explicitly said only tier 1 beds can get regen, and this is one of those things, look it up, before anyone goes, well, they said that tier 1 beds, find me the quote from CIG that says only tier 1 beds can have a respawn. And I mean direct quote, not implied quote, direct quote, because I've looked for it and I couldn't find it. There are some references in the Hope, and there is some references in, I think, the Apollo Q&A, but there's no direct references to tier 1 beds are the only beds that have regen or respawn. So that's true. We've assumed as a community, though, that it is. And it may have been said on like a live stream somewhere that I didn't find, but there definitely needs to be a citation if that's the case. And I haven't seen it. So I think it's just a matter of the community. It kind of came up with this idea. And they've slowly been eroding the idea of tier beds over time. So tier 1, was supposedly the only one, but then when they introduced the concept of regen and Ibrahim spheres and everything, they said every clinic has a tier, has the ability to do regen. And every clinic was supposed to only have tier 2 beds. Now, there's something in the game right now where all of the beds are labeled as tier 1 in clinics, even though they're not supposed to. And, a lot of people said, oh, this is just a kind of a technical aspect. But now they've gone to the point where now tier 3 beds have it. So the question is, what's going on? Why is this happening? And is this good or bad? And in my opinion, I don't think it's a good thing right now, but I do think it's a good thing long term. CIG has been in the mindset of looking at 4.0 and 1.0 over the course of the last several months. And in those conversations, the conversation is likely coming up to what do we want this system to look like in the final version? I'm sure they've been reviewing Death of a Spaceman and all these other ideas. And all of the statements that I've seen made still say that Death of a Spaceman is still a thing. Let me pull up a comment by Xylo themselves. So Xylo is the lead of the lead of the community team. And not only that, but Zach, I always say it's Pierce, I think, who's also one of the major leads of development, has also kind of echoed this idea. Specifically, the intention is for all medical beds to enable respawning, with each type of bed offering unique benefits. We're closely monitoring the experience and your feedback, as always, and we anticipate making adjustments as necessary, while also pushing forward the ultimate vision. The Nurses, I'm adopting the name too. MedBed's respawning capability is a small component of a wider interconnected set of systems that we've dubbed some time ago as Death of a Spaceman. This framework encompasses everything related to a player's health, death, respawn, and legacy. While the respawning system is currently active in-game, and other related systems such as regeneration, degradation, inheritance, and additional components of Death of a Spaceman are yet to come online, it remains our intent for dying and respawning to carry a notable impact, adding more meaning and danger to your adventures in the verse. And Lethality says, it's all been fine, but why is this needed regardless of how the rest comes out? At a high level, respawn, or what is termed regeneration, will be a viable option that should be strategically considered. Regeneration will include degradation modifiers based on the quality of respawn facility, ensuring the field regenerations offer convenience but may entail long-term consequences if overutilized. You have higher hits on your medical score, you have to get a cybernetic limb, those kind of ideas. So, effectively, CIG is not wavering in the idea that they're still doing Death of a Spaceman. So before people lose their minds because of the commercial and because of other statement, because other things have been done, no, CIG is not abandoning Death of a Spaceman. There's been no indication of it. In fact, if anything, CIG has been eagerly wanting to add Death of a Spaceman to the game, and they've been holding off, likely because of the instability of Star Citizen, because there's a lot of factors that are not in game yet, which are eventually going to be things like the insurance system, for instance, which hasn't been put in yet, which will also include life insurance, or health insurance, which will be connected to your regeneration costs and such. Now, we didn't assume, we were told certain tiers won't be able to respawn, hence there's so many. Can you find me a quote for that, Luna? That's what I'm saying. I'm fine. If that was 100% stated, I would need to see a quote. I have not found that quote. And again, I looked. The Apollo doesn't say certain tiers won't be able to. It just says that they said that the Apollo is going to support the idea, and references back to the Endeavor Hope. So, now, where do I stand on this? Two things. One, the problem is that this change was made. And with the stuff I just read you, and of course, if you watched ISC, they talked about it then, those are fantastic clarifications. But the likelihood of players finding it, or even you watching me, players watching this thing, is very low compared to the average person who's going to hear about this sort of system. And that's bad. Because players are going to start to assume either A, Star Citizen is becoming less lethal, which means it's more friendly for players who want something like a roguelike experience or Call of Duty or Battlefield experience, which might start to attract players, which will get turned off when Death of a Spaceman turns on. So this is bad messaging for even new players who will then just get turned off when the hardcore mode starts coming in. And it's bad for current players because a lot of current players feel like they're abandoning Death of a Spaceman, which was the whole point of having death matter and your consequences have your choices have consequences. That's also bad because you're going to drive those people away who begin to start thinking that a lot of the people who are claiming and shouting that Star Citizen's becoming Call of Citizen, Star of Duty, and basically Fortnite is what I've heard a lot, which is ridiculous, but you know, those sorts of claims are going to get a lot more ammo. And then that commercial is awful because it's reinforcing all of those ideas. It's not even emphasizing that the NERSA itself is a medical vehicle. It's just a mobile respawn point. That's all they cared about. It is awful messaging, considering they still want to do Death of a Spaceman. Because it's telling people that, no, they don't want to do Death of a Spaceman. They want to turn it into Battlefield. They want to turn it into PlanetSide. That's what it's telling people. And if you look at the comments in that video, you'll see a bunch of confused people and people saying, this isn't the game I backed. What are you doing? What's going on? It's a mistake. Whoever decided this was a good idea at marketing is insane. There's either something not being talked about, because you shouldn't have Jared on Star Citizen Live say, we still plan on doing Death of Spaceman, and then literally 5 minutes later, drop a video that tells everyone that Death of Spaceman is dead. You can't have these things. This is unacceptable for a company your size and that's about to drop a major AAA, branded title with Squadron 42 in probably less than a year. This is the kind of mistake you cannot make. This is rookie stuff. Absolutely awful. Start talking to each other. This is unacceptable. That's all I'm going to say about that, about that section, because this is 100% marketing's fault. It doesn't help that CIG didn't really do very good in terms of optics, because, as I'm sure a lot of people are already talking about in the comments or in other places, CIG introduces this change right when they start to sell a ship that or a vehicle that so happens to have that functionality. So a lot of people are making the assumptions and the argument that CIG is changing the game so they can sell the vehicle. And then they'll just revert it back once the vehicle has been sold, because this is all about sales and has nothing to do with the actual game. I disagree. I don't think that's the case. And all of the indications that CIG is saying is not the case. But that commercial does make it seem like that's the case. It reinforces bad ideas which shouldn't be reinforced. You are stepping on your own landmine. It's really, really bad. I'll kind of emphasize that. So, in summary, Death of Spaceman is still a thing. So if you're concerned about all of the changes to medical, it is still a thing. And they probably are still going to tier it. Some people in chat mentioned one of the things that the lore mentions is Regen uses something called Regen Serum, which was developed by Biotic Corp, the same company who does the Calliope system, which is what we use for Character Creator. It's an in-fiction thing. I did a lore video on that on my Astro Historian channel. And that implies that there's going to be a resource for regenning, which makes sense. It's not just like you magically appear again. You have to have some sort of resource to print a human from scratch. So almost certainly that resource system is going to be implemented with this in the future. Like 100%, I believe that's what they're pushing towards, along with other things and other variables that other levers that they can pull to try to change it up and try to influence player behavior, which is fine. It's this kind of thing they were talking about with Death of a Spaceman. The problem is that we're in 3.2, 3.1, not 4.0. 4.0 has the resource system in place, or will, hopefully, if we're lucky. But 3.23.1 doesn't. And so it is, in the short term, going to kill medical gameplay. No doubt about it. There is no medical gameplay, really, anyways, but it's going to get even worse for medics. So if your main role in the verse is medic, you're going to be SOL for the next couple of months until CIG starts to kind of rein in the system a little bit more to make it less of an instant respawn sort of situation. And it's also important to note that eventually there will also be no Backspace Express will be going away. That's going to happen. And as soon as CIG feels like they can do it, it's going to happen. So you won't have the ability to fast travel by ending it anymore. That's not going to be a thing. Plus, there's going to be severe consequences as they go forward. So we'll see. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of a more controversial take, and I know I probably made a very clickbaity title for this, and it was intentional, so thank you for watching, and I hope you got the more level-headed approach to this. But I do want to hear your thoughts. Is this awful? Is CIG, becoming Fortnite? Are we going to start seeing, Admiral Bishop doing the default Fortnite dance in Fortnite? Or is this just like people being absolute hysterical over nothing? It's much ado about nothing. Typical Star Citizen fans losing their mind about a speck of change. Let me know in your your thoughts in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and hit the bell icon to be notified when these release. And as always, like I always say, hope to see you someday in the black.